Most people spend years inside organizations before they understand how those organizations actually work. Not because the systems are intentionally opaque, but because many of the most important patterns of the organization are very subtle. They don't appear in any policies or job descriptions. They emerge slowly through the structure, incentives, and behavior. Here are 10 organizational patterns people usually notice too late. Welcome to the Human Patterns Lab. We explain how human behavior actually works. Starting with the very first pattern, information weakens as it moves up. In small teams, information moves directly. Problems are seen immediately. Signals are messy but accurate. But as organizations grow, information travels through multiple layers. Each layer summarizes, simplifies, and filters the message slightly. By the time the signal reaches decision makers, it often looks cleaner but less complete. The system becomes easier to manage, but it also goes further away from reality. Next, alignment is rewarded more than accuracy. Organizations depend on coordination. Projects move forward when people align on a specific direction. Because of this, systems often reward those who reduce friction, not necessarily those who challenge the assumptions. Over time, people learn that agreement feels productive, while disagreement slows momentum. Accuracy may still matter, but alignment often becomes the behavior that advances careers. Number three, stability gradually becomes more important than the truth. As systems grow larger, stability becomes more valuable. Large organizations cannot function with constant disruption, so processes are built to maintain predictability. But this also means that information which creates uncertainty can feel uncomfortable, even when that information is accurate. The system begins optimizing for smooth operation rather than continuous correction. Number 4. Incentives quietly shape behavior. Most people believe behavior is driven by values. In reality, behavior responds most consistently to incentives. What gets rewarded becomes repeated. What creates friction becomes avoided. Over time, individuals adapt to what the system reinforces, often without consciously realizing the change. Number 5. Fear often appears as professional caution. Fear inside organizations rarely looks dramatic. There are usually no explicit threats. The company ensures it. Instead, people observe patterns. They notice when opinions carry weight, whose mistakes are remembered, which disagreements create resistance. Eventually, people begin filtering themselves, not because they are told to by any individual, but because the system quietly teaches where the boundaries are. Number 6. Complexity reduces visibility within the organization. Growth introduces structure. Structure introduces layers. And each layer increases the distance between decisions and the underlying reality. As complexity increases, leaders rely more on the summaries, reports, dashboards, etc. These tools improve coordination, but they also remove the detail where many early signals exist. The systems become organized but very less sensitive. Number 7. Problems rarely appear suddenly. Many organizational failures appear sudden. A project might collapse, a strategy might fail, and a crisis might emerge unexpectedly. But most of these outcomes develop very slowly. Early warnings often exist. They simply travel through the system too weakly to trigger any kind of correction. By the time the problem becomes visible, the underlying pattern has been building for a very long time. Number 8. Systems prefer predictability over experimentation. Large organizations must coordinate the actions of many people. Predictability makes this easier. When behavior is predictable, planning becomes simpler and risk becomes easier to manage. But predictability also discourages experimentation because experimentation introduces uncertainty. Over time, systems often reward reliability more consistently than exploration. If you have made it this far, please throw in a like and subscribe the channel to follow more such content. Number 9. Culture forms from repeated behavior. Many organizations try to define culture through value statements, but culture rarely forms that way. Culture emerges from behavior that repeats without resistance. The behaviors people observe being rewarded, tolerated, or ignored eventually become the unwritten rules of the system. Over time, those patterns define what feels normal. And lastly, systems normalize their own blind spots. Perhaps the most subtle pattern is how systems adapt to their own limitations. When information is incomplete or feedback is delayed, people adjust their expectations. Signals that once felt concerning gradually feel routine. The organization becomes accustomed to its own blind spots. And once something feels normal, it becomes much harder to question. In conclusion, understanding organizations is not about judging individuals. Most people inside systems are simply adapting to the environment around them. But systems create patterns. And once you begin noticing those patterns, their behavior inside organizations start to make much more sense. Now that you have looked at different kinds of patterns that can be hidden within these subtle norms of the organizations, comment on which patterns you notice on a regular basis. Follow the Human Patterns Lab for more.